Today, we're diving into a business model that's looking to completely rewire the beauty industry. It's called COS-TECH-MED. We're going to break down exactly how it works, what it claims to do, and maybe most importantly, whether it can actually solve one of the industry's oldest and biggest problems. So first, let's set the stage. The global cosmetics industry is massive. We're talking over $500 billion. But here's the thing. For all that money, the entire industry is kind of built on a shaky foundation. And that flaw? It's a loyalty crisis. You see, despite spending billions and billions on marketing, brands are finding it harder and harder to keep their customers. And on the flip side, we, the consumers, are just drowning in a sea of choices and promises that don't always deliver. It's this vicious cycle that's holding everyone back. So, here's our game plan for today. First, we'll dig into the industry's core challenge. Then, we'll unpack the COS-TECH-MED framework and see how its loyalty loop actually works. We'll look at the performance they're reporting, analyze the huge business model shift it represents, and finally, consider what its path to going global looks like. All right, let's kick things off with the problem itself. What is actually broken in the world of beauty commerce? Well, it's really a two-sided problem. On one hand, you've got the brands. They're just pouring money into ads, trying to cut through the noise of fake reviews, only to see less than 15% of customers actually come back for another purchase, and they get almost zero data after the sale. Then there's us, the consumers. We're facing a totally saturated market with conflicting info everywhere, and we get no real, tangible benefits for staying loyal to a brand. Okay, so how on earth do you fix a disconnect that big? Well, that brings us to the core idea we're looking at today, the COS-TECH-MED framework. So what does that even mean? Well, COS-TECH-MED stands for the three pillars of this model. You've got cosmetics, the products themselves, then technology, which is the digital glue holding it all together, and finally, medical, which connects everything to high-value aesthetic services like laser treatments or fillers. The CEO of Big Wave 3, Seo Min, put it really well. He calls it a one-cycle solution that taps into three things people really want. They're curious about aesthetic treatments, they want real rewards for their spending, and they're aiming for what he calls great beauty. All right, so we get the what, but now for the really interesting part, the how. How does this whole ecosystem actually function to create the loyalty we've been talking about? It all revolves around what they call the customer loyalty loop. So imagine this. First, you buy a cosmetic product from a partner brand. Then, you scan a unique dual QR code on the packaging, which proves it's authentic. Instantly, you get rewarded with some cash back, but here's the kicker. You also earn medical reward points. These points are basically a currency you can then use for discounts on treatments at affiliated clinics. And just like that, a single purchase becomes a reason to stay engaged. And powering all of this is some pretty cool tech. We're not talking about a standard QR code here. This is a patented 3-layer system that gives every single product its own unique digital ID. This lets them link each item to a specific customer, and it's all locked down with top-of-the-line encryption. Behind the scenes, there's an AI engine personalizing the experience and a gamified system to encourage referrals. And maybe most importantly, the whole thing is built from the ground up to be deployed in over 60 countries. Okay, the idea sounds amazing on paper, right? But does it actually deliver? Let's take a look at the performance data they've reported. And wow, the numbers they're reporting are pretty wild. Look at the repurchase rate. It jumps from the industry average of like 15% all the way up to 90%. That is a 6-fold increase. And the referral rate is even more insane, exploding from a typical 5% to 80%. Now, it's important to remember these numbers come directly from the company's own materials, but man, they definitely show a powerful incentive at work here. The financial upside for brands looks just as dramatic. I mean, imagine slashing your marketing costs by 75% because the reward system itself is doing the work. Then, you add a 4x boost to your expert profit margins, and thanks to that slick QR system, you get 100% counterfeit prevention, which is a massive, massive drain on the industry. Numbers like these aren't just small wins. They point to a complete reinvention of the business model itself. What this really boils down to is a massive shift from acquisition to retention. The old model, right? It's all about pouring money into ads, which leads to super high customer acquisition costs, or CAC, and it just eats into your profits, leaving you with maybe 15% margins. But this new ecosystem model,
It's driven by rewards and keeping the customers you already have. This drops that acquisition cost to almost nothing, and the company is projecting potential operating profit margins of around 60%. That's a total game changer.
So the model seems incredibly powerful, but the real test, the ultimate test, is whether it can actually go global and sustain that kind of success. But here's the thing, scaling isn't just about having good tech. To really succeed, they've got to nail 4 key things. Having a smart, structured plan for each new country, keeping their message consistent everywhere to build a recognizable brand, creating a strong digital presence so people can actually find them, and of course, growing a really robust network of partner brands and clinics. And all of this leads us to a really crucial takeaway. When you're building something this big, this complex, especially across borders, the story you tell, the narrative, is just as vital as the technology itself. The tech might get you a seat at the table, but it's the clear, compelling story that lets you win. And that leaves us with this final big question. We've looked at a model that tries to swap out massive ad budgets for real, tangible value, creating this amazing closed loop between products and services. So if they can actually pull this off at scale, could this kind of loyalty architecture fundamentally redefine the entire future of beauty commerce? Honestly, that's the question the whole industry is going to be watching.